positions are getting crushed right now.
Oh, no, I made a correct prediction on Friday. The Twitter thinks I'm some sort of mystic. So,
what was your prediction, that it'll be a taco?
That there'd be a huge short dump into the market on Monday morning.
Oh, of course, the one you sent me. Yeah.
I mean, I got up this morning. Well, I didn't get. I mean, I'm on Eastern. I'm not on Eastern time, obviously. I'm Central European time. But at 9 a.m. or at 9:30, I look at the price of oil, and it's gone down 7.7%. I know we live in strange and interesting times, but 7.7% moves are not normal. Can we please just reset? Can we please reset our expectations back to before February and realize that oil and commodities don't generally trade plus or minus 7.7%? So yeah, there was a huge short dump. I mean, when we talked on Friday, there was already a short dump. It was already being shorted in the beginning of the quieter trading hours, and then huge dumps into the market Eastern time last night, I guess, between about 1 a.m. and about 6 a.m. So now the trick with these, just quickly, the trick with these short dumps is, because people sort of misunderstand me. Somebody had the goal on Twitter to question my mystical crystal ball gazing capacities and said, last 2 weekends, the market rallied on Mondays. You need the narratives. This is why the guys that say, oh, you can just have these short dumps into the market and the algo manipulation doesn't matter. No, you need both. So you need the good headlines and the ceasefire and blah, 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 whatever the latest rubbish that they're talking about is. And then you need to do the short dump, and then it'll work. It won't just work if they're bombing the hell out of Iran. It won't work. So yeah, oil's down, I don't know, 6.7, I think I checked just before. So no doubt the crisis is over, and it's whatever. But I do think that they pace these ceasefire announcements based on the price of oil. You can look at a trade within a window or whatever. It's interesting.
Because if you look at the news cycle, if you ask me what would oil do, I'm not a trader by any means, but I would have guessed there will be a big drop in prices, because I just assumed Trump would tackle. I didn't expect him to tackle that weekend. I thought he'll eventually tackle. But if you look at the news, though, it doesn't really match what's happening in Saudi. If you could show these images, I think it's Philip, or the new producer, I forgot your name, sorry. I think it's Philip. If you can show this image of Saudi. Saudi was struck 3 days ago by the Houthis and struck again today, and it's burning.
Yes, on fire.
That doesn't align with the price drop.
Well, of course not, but that doesn't get the headlines. Who's looking at these images? Stupid, interested people on Twitter. No.
It's so strange. I see these economists, and they look like they could be in a punk band, but you got to live in the generation you're in, I guess. I think oil prices, I think this war is, there's no way to back off of it. I think Donald Trump has cratered his credibility and his legacy on behalf of a man who I think his history will rate as despicable, and it's too bad. It's too bad, but man, we were going to have problems with oil anyway, and now 20 to 25% of the world's oil supply, it's just not going to be available. It's really frightening, and we're sleepwalking. Everybody's on vacation. We're so inured to predictions of bad things that we ignore it. But here in the United States, we've been blessed essentially since the world wars, with a very powerful dollar, which for quite a while was priced, vis-a-vis gold. And then under Doc Kissinger, it was, and since it's been tied to oil. But that, with one really misguided mistake, Trump's blown all of that up. And I don't think he's aware of it yet. I don't think he's really buys into the dire predicament our globe is in terms of climate. I don't think he buys into peak oil. So he's a throwback in many ways, even though he's a baby boomer, like Bob Dylan is a baby boomer. I think they should have cut the baby boom generation in half. But Trump technically is a baby boomer. And his solutions are from the golden age of American oil power, financial power, and they don't make any adjustments for what we've learned since. The world's population back then was, no numbers coming to mind, but I wouldn't be surprised that the world's population was in the 2 to 3 billion range, and we've approached 8 billion now. And it's because of oil. It's allowed us to destroy, move in, claim all of the continents with our engines, and to plant marginal soil using oil-based fertilizer, and fill out our population's needs with everything from plastics to medicines to airlifts to roads and engines. And we were going to have, in my judgment, and I'm not the only one, a real issue at some point with peak oil, which is we've been in a plateau of oil production, which I think's lasted a lot longer than what I expected based on a lot of research. But we did make it to the outside ranges of everybody I read. I mean, some people thought we would face a crisis in the middle of the last decade. Many thought it would be the middle of this decade. Well, we're 2026. I don't know, maybe it can go a little longer. The surprise production comes from Russia. Russia has been able to get its supposedly Soviet-era destroyed reserves and production up. But it's just like U.S. production. And we're above our 1972-73 peak, but it's not really that we discovered any more oil. There were some changes in our policies in Texas. And cheap money allowed the United States to pursue the development of a lot of marginal fields with horizontal drilling and fracking. And you can debate, is money going to be cheap again? Is money going to be available? is the world going to accept our dollars when the world now knows that we can't even protect the Middle East, that our weapons are not that powerful compared to Russian, Iranian, and Chinese investments in technology? And this is, slowly people are recognizing warnings that I've given, for a while. My dad, I hope he's in heaven, would get frustrated with me because he couldn't accept that the United States might have lost its standing as a a leader in military power based on technology. And I don't have access to what he had access to. But we can't protect our allies. The Russians invested in hypersonic missiles, and they invested in whatever, I can't remember the names, the S-200s or the S-260s. Anyway, these mobile air defense missiles that can, to my memory, they can shoot off 20 missiles at subs, helicopters, incoming missiles, planes, and they're accurate and they get the job done. I'm not sure our Patriot missiles do what they say they do. It doesn't matter what I think. What matters is what the Saudi royal family thinks. It matters is what the UAE thinks. And the rest of the world believes. And if they think that technological power has shifted to Russia, Iran, China, our seniorage is, it's the easiest way to understand it is if you have to work, I have to work, we get paid in dollars. Well, let's just pretend that's what the country does. Let's just treat it countries as if it's individual. Well, if you're in Greece and you're working, and you're Greece working, or you're India right now working, or you're Malaysia working, you work. You make money, you buy your food, pay your rent, invest for the future, invest in your education, put some money away for healthcare. But then you need fuel to drive your car. Well, what Malaysia and Greece and India and all the rest of the world have to do, they earn their money, but to buy, and it's changing rapidly, but in essence, to buy oil to fuel their economy, they've got to change that money that they earned, that currency, the rupee, the ringgit, the drachma, but it's actually the euro. You've got to exchange that into dollars first, and then buy your oil. Well, we do our work and our overspending and our overborrowing, but when we buy oil, we just give them dollars. And I'm using oil, that's the whole economy out there, but we just give dollars. If we don't have it, we write on our HELOC, or we draw down on our credit card, or we borrow from our uncle, or we tell the person asking us to buy their products, hey, here's our IOU, and it's all accepted. We're able to write checks, credit cards. We're able to buy our energy and other products for dollars. And we don't have the currency risk. And so far, we don't really have that much punishment for the debt levels we have. And anyway, seniorage is our ability to pay for everything by just issuing dollars. The rest of the world has to go about their life earning, planning, and then converting into dollars. Now that's changed over time. After World War II in particular, I think the gold was here, the factories were here. The factories now are all in China. The innovation was here. The innovation now is in China, even though people don't want to believe that. We had the best markets in the world. Our markets are entirely corrupt now. Our markets are designed to help a dozen guys at the oligarchs at the top. Our markets don't have price discovery anymore. They don't have a bubble up from the bottom. Everything's priced from the top in these private equity pools and these banks and the lawyers and Congress. And Wagner sticks in my craw because she protects it. She should be ejected. But we don't have real, we're destroying our country with this idiocy. And China just waits until the technology's available, pick it up through an LLC, you know, MMAT, all these companies. But what do we choose to do with the one president who said he wouldn't go to war? We choose the one thing that the rest of the world would turn against us on. We decide to defend a bunch of disgruntled and a big percentage delusional people. I don't know what the percentage are U.S. citizens. A lot of them are already U.S. citizens anyway. Why the hell, if they want to live in a desert, there's Arizona. Come on over. We'll accept every single Israeli. We don't discriminate. We accept Jews. We allow people to practice their religion. We're not anti-Semitic. Why the hell do we have to spend $100 to $150 billion bombing the F out of Israel's neighbors because they can't get along? They're never happy. They're never happy. They need more. They need Lebanon. They need Syria. They need Turkey. They need Iraq and Iran and a big chunk of Saudi Arabia, all of Jordan and into Egypt before they're happy. Lebensraum. Where did we hear that before? Why don't we just invite all of the Israeli citizens to move to Arizona, Florida, New York, New Jersey, California, and we welcome them with open arms. It'd be cheaper than what we're doing right now. But we won't. We won't. We won't. Oil's going to 200, 250. Our world has changed. All for a bunch of arguing, unpleasant, unhappy people. Why? Why? Why do we have to do that? Our life is hard enough. But we've made that decision. Donald Trump has made that decision. And if you think he's gonna turn around and make a deal, there is no deal to be made. No one trusts him. No one. No one believes him. The MOU's off the table. Obama's deal was better. And what can Trump do? There's only one thing to do: attack Iran with Israel. Guys, this is the most insane policy. I just can't even believe it. I just can't even believe it. It just shows that good human beings can get off track when all they're listening to, Jared Kushner. Who elected him? Lutnick. And who's that other guy? The guy that goes to Moscow, Whittaker, Wisecraft, I can't even think of his name. He's just surrounded by Zionists. Huckabee, what an idiot. But anyway, sorry, it upsets me, but the point is oil prices are going a lot higher, and it's going to change your world. There's a before and after here, and it's a sad thing. Luckily, the Democrats are destroying themselves with absolutely idiotic policies, and I'm not going to go on with it. But George Orwell, in his book 1984, it might have been, it was 1984. He said it always starts with the women, and I think, unfortunately, I don't want to talk about it, but I think the feminization of our educational system and our government and our law is leading us to some really kooky, illogical points of view. And of course, I'm not talking about, individual women. It's just as a collective, this argument is just leaving our country with some insane conclusions. And nobody's allowed to point it out. That's the scary thing. That's the scary thing. Somewhere we've lost our embracing of truth and our fearlessness to study and our courage to take on any foe. And I don't know. The era of John F. Kennedy has evolved into the era of AOC and this the most likely Democratic nominee is probably going to be, I forgot her name right now, the vice president. I can't even think of her name, Kamala, because they're gonna have South Carolina as the beginning point. And I hate to point it out because we're all in this racial identity. Everything's identity politics. Martin Luther King would be appalled. We can all agree that white, straight men are the problem. We can all hate them. But everything else is accepted. Well, one thing about Kamala Harris, she ain't black. Her father is a Jamaican. Okay, so she's got some color. Her mother's an Indian. And that's a different kind of color. And I would argue that most Indians would probably argue that they ain't black either. They're more, I don't know. This whole breaking down by race is frustrates me because I grew up trying really hard not to see any race at all, or you could see colors, but you accept that people are all God's children. We're all human. But to be a Caucasoid isn't just to be a white European. And I would think that the Indians, that we came up with that name years ago, I would think they align themselves more with that than with African. But I don't know. And it doesn't matter to me. I'm not somebody that divides my view of the world by religion or race. But I also don't deny when you see certain behaviors, you can't, anyway. So we're going to get Kamala Harris, whose life experience was not growing up as an African American, which is now the terminology, in the Deep South or in the hard parts of the city or where I live. That wasn't her experience. She grew up in enclaves, went to great schools. She lived a very, if you want to divide everything out, she lived a very white existence in North America. She dated a married guy that I think was certainly African American, if that's the term we use, but he's married. So she spent her the time of her youth where she could have married and had children. She spent it involved with a married man. Was she really in love with him? It led her to her career. I guess you can't fault anybody for using whatever they can use to advance. But she is going to be the face of the Democratic Party, or it's going to be AOC. So luckily for the Republicans, the Democrats are collapsing. But Donald Trump has destroyed the power of the Republican Party on a lying criminal, a maniacal man called Benjamin Netanyahu. And I tell you what, soon I won't even be able to make comments like that. Soon. And we'll go into this world, very Soviet world, and the very Orwellian world, where you're not allowed to state the obvious. Anyway, the future isn't bright, my friends, for the United States of America, unless we can wake up and reclaim what makes us great. And we haven't lost it, but we gotta snap out of it. China's way ahead on it's so ironic. China is able to study science, study facts, and accept them. I'm not talking about politically, but they have a plan from above and they act on it, and they have the patience. They don't spend their money squandering it, bombing deserts and assaulting mountains and killing people that are going to hate you the rest of their lives. They don't have a judgment on people's religions. Of course, I think the Chinese can be pretty, if you want to get down to it, racist. They look down on, but that's not the point of what I'm saying. I want the United States to succeed. And we've got a president who doesn't like to lose, and he's used to winning. And I think his heart's been in the right place on almost everything he's done, except allowing Benjamin Netanyahu into the White House so that Benji can do his laundry, bring his suitcases of dry cleaning, so he can't even that Israel can't pay for. They can't pay for the war against Iran. We're paying for it in blood, in our dollars, in our lifestyle, our future, and $150 billion. And we send money, $5 billion to Israel, so they can come bribe our Congress. Guys, we got to wake up. Israel's not our friend. They're on some sick agenda. I just personally, and I'm not a great studier of the Talmud or the Old Testament. I admit it. But I cannot believe that what God intended to give to Abraham and his children, which would be as innumerable as the stars, I don't believe it was for these 7 million angry, unhappy, spoiled, white supremacist, religious supremacist people to have a given a country, and it's not good enough for them. They need more. I don't think that's what the Lord was telling Abraham, and I don't believe that that's what's in the Old Testament, and it doesn't make sense to me. God created all of this, the whole of the universe. You don't think if in fact the reading is somehow, I don't even believe that Christ was Jewish, and we all, at least when I go, we are the Jews that said, we're the crowd that said to Pontius Pilate, when we were given a choice between Barabbas, however you say it, and Christ, we're the one that said crucify him. We don't make that distinction. But anyway, the distinction apparently is this group of angry people are chosen. Well, let me just ask you, God, when he comes back, can't find them if they're sitting in Arizona or in Florida? Why do they have to be in the middle of the desert, destroying and killing and spreading hatred and telling the world that the Palestinians are lower than rats and they're not even killing babies, killing grandmothers? Why should we defend that? But this is the path we've just taken. All right, I'll shut up. I that's not why you tuned in. But what I'm telling you is Iran and the rest of the world are not going to make a deal with Trump. They don't trust him. And we are no longer going to have our bases in the Middle East. We are no longer going to control and have a say-so over oil in the Middle East. Oil is predominantly no longer going to be priced in dollars. The new Bretton Woods is closer to us in our life than we believe. And that's, you got to love Trump because he likes to act. He likes to get things done. But he's sped everything up. He has sped everything up. So anyway, what's my point of all that? Get ready for really expensive oil, really expensive gasoline. Start getting your financial house in order. Start getting your debt levels down. Start adjusting for a future where the United States is not as rich as we have been. I think we're still going to be well off, and I think our lives will be great, but we have to start planning. All right, so I went on a little long on that. I'm sorry I got worked up. My point isn't to get all political, although that's what I do sometimes. My point is to emphasize there's no escape from this war. There's no escape. There's no going back to the way it was. And the net result, I can't predict exactly the future. Nobody can. But the net result is oil used to be flowing through the Strait of Hormuz uninhibited. That will no longer be the case. There will be a toll. There will be a price. There's going to be, I would imagine, a lot of money spent to build pipelines away from there. But I think there's going to be new alliances if the war stops. If the war stops, there will be new alliances, and the United States, because of this gigantic blunder, is going to be out of the Middle East. Now, I have friends that disagree with me. My brother disagrees, and he thinks we're going to, wipe out Iran. Iran's the size of the United States east of the Mississippi. It's a big place. I don't think we're going to overrun it. But anyway, that's one of my messages is oil is going to frighten you in the future. Now we may get through this where there's a depression coming or a massive recession, and then oil prices collapse temporarily. But as the world comes out of that, and particularly as the United States comes out of that, we're going to draw on our oil reserves, and they're not going to be there. The world was going to face this anyway. It's just something that's going to happen a whole lot sooner. So I don't know what my advice is. All of us, I don't have a car, but if you drive everywhere, it's going to get more expensive. If you live the North American suburban lifestyle, it's going to get a lot more expensive. So we got to focus on making money. All right, let me cut myself off there. I didn't really mean to get so worked up. I just wanted to point out, mainly, there's no way back from much higher oil prices. There's no way back, in my opinion. The reason why is I don't think Trump's real estate style, I get it. Bluff, pull back, attack, pull back, and then you get the best deal you can. I don't think Iran's going to fall for it. I think we've pushed it too far. I hope I'm wrong. Okay. So I think there's going to be a disruption with oil, and I think right now everyone's on vacation. Right now everyone's in denial. But come next year, and certainly as we come around January, I think a lot of private equity money is going to go lock up oil in the United States. It's different than it used to be. This used to be price discovery, just like you find with technology companies. Price discovery used to come from below. Now it's all a diktat from the Apollos, from the Blackstones, from the the Fidelities. It's all directed from above how we're going to do these investments, and it's an odd transition. If you look at it critically, we're a lot more like China is. We claim to have free markets, but our markets are a lot more directed from some banks and some pools of hedge fund money than they are, and they own the government, than they truly are from a bottom up, let the market decide point of view. And hey, you can be the judge. Did it work for the Soviet Union? Did it work for China prior to Bill Clinton letting them into the Western world's financial system as a developing country? And it's never changed. They bribe everybody. And I like China. I'm not trying to be hard on them. But the fact is, China still gets advantages in this world system. And they've kicked our butt. They've kicked our butt while we focus on Islam and bombing anybody that is a threat to our banking system. It's frustrating. All right, so where are the stocks? It's 1 o'clock. Railtown is flat at 23.84. Finger is down 0.0048 at 26.01. I guess keep holding on to Finger. Someday it'll be cheaper than Railtown, and then you can switch into Railtown. Might as well ride it on down. Next trip, a stock we've talked about, is up 2 cents at $1.77. ZJYL is down 5 cents at 2.01. I don't know what else to look at. That one, you know, that Tolstoy King that comes on here, he's always got a good idea with you, you know, just in the name of diversification. COSM is now under 20 cents at 1963. I don't remember the other one he said. Something that began with an O, and maybe that one's up. But it's all trading, and they remember the system wants the stocks up so they can churn the money. They drive it down, and then it's impossible for these companies to get out of the. Do you ever see that movie with Elizabeth Shue and Nicolas Cage, Leaving Las Vegas? I went to see it years ago. In my old neighborhood, we had a theater, which I went in. It was really a hot day, and my house. I bought these big air conditioned, but it wasn't central air, and it was so hot that day. And I decided to go to the theater, and it was packed. But I was by myself. It was middle of the day, and that movie came on. I thought it was one of the. It's a sad subject matter, but I thought it was one of the most powerful movies I've ever. Enjoyable mood, and the music was amazing. I thought the acting was great. It is a sad story, but I love the scene where he moves from his big suite somewhere in Las Vegas as he's running out of money, and he goes to I think the motel was called The Whole Year Inn. I think that was the name. And he's bringing his bottles and he's looking at it, and he sees the name in his delirium as the hole you are in, the hole you are in. And that's what these companies get into. They get into these holes and they can't get out because our financial system has been bastardized to be in the favor, literally, of maybe a dozen men. And a lot of those men are Zionists, and they have a lot of tax strategies. They don't pay a lot of tax. And that 150 billion that we're paying to attack the whole world on behalf of Israel, it's coming out of your tax dollars. But these big pools of money and a lot of offshore shenanigans, it's all, I don't know. We don't have anybody who's making judgments and protecting our best interests anymore. It's all, and I guess it's the end of an empire when it all becomes financialization. But financialization can't work forever if you don't have real wealth. And we still have it. We just got to wake up. We've got to wake up. Anyway, what other stocks are out here? Nightmare of nightmares. Nixie, let's see where that is. Nixie is down 15 cents at 69 cents. A good guy came on here. I think that stock was in the $1.70 range when he did. Thought it was going higher because of their data center. And uh, uh, I don't. I think his question was sincere, but again, manipulated stock. They short it down, and we've got to get out of this. We've got to get out of this whole area. Um, Last one I'll look at, I guess, is GDC. That's $1.80 up 10 cents. But remember, it did a 250 for one split. I will look at Finger, 26 to 26.14. I was skewered and called an idiot when it was $1.05. And I called it as I saw it. I said it's going to 30 cents, then to 20 cents. Guys, you can't, I don't know. It's so boring, isn't it? Talking about the same thing over again. All right, let's, I'll go through some of your questions. There's nothing new on Railtown. There's nothing new on Total Metals. I thought I was going to have an interview. I'll try to get one of those soon. I'm seriously considering doing interviews with another company, but I've got to get through their financing. I got to get comfortable with their strategy. What we've been focusing on over the last 4 or 5 years are these stocks. Now, I've learned a lot. I knew a lot, I thought, but I didn't know the depth of this hole you're in until I got, I learned more each time. But if you're a company in the North American markets, you don't have many choices. If you don't have and it's not the best use of a CEO's talent to go on the hustings to raise money. That's why they used to turn to investment banks. That's why they used to turn to brokerage firms. But that's all gone now. The allocation of capital as it is today in the United States, you bring your account to a wealth advisor, a family office, or a brokerage firm, whomever, and they gather your assets and they put it in pools of money like managed accounts or ETFs or the latest insurance wrapped, disguised bailout of private credit. And Wall Street collects a trail. They get upfront fees. They get to organize the merger and acquisition fees, but they also get to charge, anywhere from 20 to, as it can be high, 20 to even 50% of profits. But they get an ongoing 2, 3, 5%. They get the interest charged. They get all sorts of other fees. So it's become gather the assets and put a bunch of ticks on it to suck the blood out of it. And that's the modern financial market. It's tough for the CEOs. But on the other hand, CEOs have to deal with what's in front of them. They can't delude themselves. So anyway, sometimes CEOs do take these financings, and they do then get out of it. But anyway, I may invite this one company on if they convince me they can do that. But I really want to get our Railtown position into a stronger price range and then start ourselves diversifying in some of these other assets. I look forward to that. I look forward to building something with everybody. One of the other things to talk about with oil, and I don't know, for example, I haven't listened to him in a while. Guys like David Hunter, I haven't listened to in a while. I don't know where they are. I've tried to follow what Stephen Lieb used to say, but he's changed his all of these guys get money from fees like Lieb, and he's changed his product quite a bit. So I can't, and I haven't subscribed to him in a while. I can't afford it. But he used to have an index, and I think he called it the Lieb index. But as long as oil was under $100 or $150 a barrel, he was still pretty keen on a bull market. He started shifting away. I don't know if I have his book here. I might have it, but so much of it's in storage now. But he shifted away from just strictly oil and gold, not so much silver, oil and gold, and started talking about all sorts of other companies as well. But he was so adamant about that oil trigger for a collapse in the market, a correction, that I'd like to know what he thinks now. I just haven't been able to find it out. I am trying to. I don't think $100 or $150 oil would be his trigger anymore. Why? Because the dollar has come down, and it's a good 10 years later, if not 15 years later, from when he would, his monthly thing was called the, I don't think it was called the Lieb report. It was a kind of a golden yellow and white. I have a hard, the contrarian investor, can't remember. He just doesn't do it anymore as far as I can tell. Anyway, I think high oil prices could trigger a correction in the market at some point. And I do emphasize that Donald Trump has been able to pull success out of the jaws of defeat many times. So I could be wrong in my read on the Middle East. I don't think so. Otherwise, I wouldn't talk about it so forcefully. But I admit I could be wrong. But the risk is oil prices are what triggers the great worldwide bust up that leads to a correction in the market. I want to show you something. I didn't listen to it all from Tom Lee, and I'll do that in a second, not right now. But he's actually calling this a correction that we're going through in the market, and he thinks the market will start going upward, led by AI. I tend to agree with him. I still think the markets are going to go to all-time highs and very rapidly, and it could be September, October, or leading into next year. But the big risk I see is those oil prices. I'm sorry I got off into all the other discussion, but that's what I wanted to get across, was that one of the things people don't see is the risk of much higher oil prices. And it would be a threat to private credit, private equity. It'd be a threat to planning because it'll be volatility. But hopefully Trump can move that down the road a year or so we can build our own positions. All right, let me go to your comments because I feel like I got a little off track of Railtown. I've been studying Railtown. I've been trying to come up with a new angle to talk about. And it's very difficult. It's very difficult. Maybe I'll show you some of the things that I found that particularly I think they're mostly from yeah, we could do that. We could go through some of what this isn't everything, but it gives us something to these are the things that Dr. Tom Core posted. I warned you that August is going to be Dullsville. And unfortunately, that's what we're going through. I don't think it means that the stock price is going to be necessarily crushed or even be here at these prices during August. But I just think it might be really slow in terms of information. I don't know what to tell you about that. And I don't really want to talk about the fact that the law firms are populated with really young people, and you know, I just don't want to get into it. So we might have to wait till September before there's a breakthrough on news. That gives us a chance to talk about other things, other companies, and maybe what we'll do as our position gains in value. But anyway, let's look at what Dr. Core put up. Dr. Core liked this. What does Uniserve Communications Corporation do? If you want a business to succeed, amongst many things, you need to create a unique service offering in the market you operate. So you need to create a unique service offering in the market you operate in. One that is clear and distinguishable to the world and to our employees. This is written by Gautam Lohia. At Uniserve, the market opportunity is clear. Canada has 17,000 mid-sized businesses who need connectivity, data infrastructure, and reliable tech services. So the story here, and I don't want you to forget it, is this is a big market, which Railtown is going after. This is Dr. Tom Core. He's the director of business development at Railtown. There are many single service providers, fewer than 50 people, and many large impersonal providers, over 1,000 people, focused on enterprise. We are trying to become the Canada-wide reliable, strategic, full-service partner for these mid-sized companies, providing the following tech services. And it's right up our bailiwick: management, connectivity, data centers. We are growing and we are acquiring. That's Uniserve. I don't know if he's talking about Canada, but it says here at Uniserve. It doesn't say up here that he is with Uniserve, but he says we're growing and acquiring. I assume he's talking about Uniserve. All right, what's the next one? Ultimately, we want to be number one in our niche. Who wants to be number two anyways? Anyway, nobody remembers who comes in second. No fun in that. And here's another fun picture of our Vancouver team. I assume this is Uniserve. And that's their Vancouver team. And then Dr. Tom Core liked this: the tech capital. Amsterdam, headquartered Nebius, has launched a new model allowing infrastructure partners to deploy its full stack AI cloud platform in their own data centers. Under the arrangement, partners will finance and own the infrastructure and hardware while operating the facilities. Nebius will provide the system architecture, hardware design, supply chain access, and software stack. And the resulting market capacity will run through its global sales network. So Dr. Core liked this. And I didn't put everything he liked because it got to be a lot, but that he liked that. Nebius launches asset light model to expand AI cloud capacity. And you gotta maybe wonder, is Dr. Core trying to, by using, it's perfectly legal, by using public news, maybe there's something to this idea of a conductor cloud. I don't know. All right, let's keep going. Dr. Core celebrated Daniel Wijdor. I was on Bloomberg this week talking about data centers and whether building more of them is how Canada wins the AI race. While they're important, I don't think overinvesting in data centers is the right move. When the light bulb arrived, everybody rushed to build generators. The long-lasting economic value was in tulip bulbs. No, I'm kidding. The long-lasting economic value did not end up with people who built the generators. It ended up with everyone who figured out what to do with the electrons. We are running a version of that experiment again with AI. Compute is necessary, and I am not arguing otherwise, but it should not be the top priority. The country that wins is the one that gets best at applying, that's Railtown, at applying this technology to real problems in real industries at scale. That is applied computing. That is what it's called, applied computing. And Canada is already extraordinary at it. We have the researchers and the ideas. What we have not had is a way to keep them here and let them build. So it comes down to three things. One, a pathway for applied computing talent to lead a company rather than leave for USA. Two, access to capital in Canada. And three, first customer willing to take the call. It always comes down to somebody into the pool first. AXL exists to provide all three. We work with applied computing researchers to help form our ventures with scientific rigor. We invest in our ventures through our fund, and we run our corporate partnership program that gives our venture companies access from day one. We are actively looking for founders to lead our next ventures. If you want to build the next generation of leading AI companies or know someone who does, kindly get in touch. And here's the guy on Bloomberg. Dr. Tom Core liked this. Greta Kutulenko. Manufacturing data does not exist without context. A number only becomes useful when you understand the process behind it. A temperature reading, pressure shift, cycle time variation, or test result can mean very different things depending on the product, machine, material, or production stage. That is why generic AI will only take manufacturing so far. It can identify patterns, but understanding why those patterns matter requires process knowledge. Engineers and quality teams understand the realities behind the data. What is normal, what is risky, not going to do it, and what needs attention. The goal of AI in manufacturing should not be to replace that expertise. It should be to work more effectively with it. That is why we focus on manufacturing quality and process intelligence at Acerta, AI that understands manufacturing context and helps teams make better decisions sooner. The future of industrial AI will not belong to the most generic model. It will belong to systems that understand the environments where decisions are made. I think it all leads to the orchestration layer and what Railtown has built. Okay, Dr. Cord liked this. Roger Milford. In my wildest dreams, never did I think I would visit Papua New Guinea. I never did. I should have. My father was posted there. I was working at my all-important career at Merrill Lynch, Pierce, Fenner, and Smith. So I didn't dare take 3 weeks to go. I wish I had. But I didn't. I should have just taken the chance. But you're always in this competition to stay top quintile. But my dad, well, anyway, I won't talk about him. It's been a pleasure to work with Channel 10 and local SBS team in presenting ADONT or ADONT to this part of the world. Everyone has been so kind and hospitable, and they still seem to have the top of their heads. Dr. Tom Core liked this. Avantune. Technology often enters C-level conversations. That's up top where the women and men make the decisions on AI. At two moments, when the budget is approved and when something goes wrong. Well, the budget for a lot of these companies has been approved, but it needs to be spent and allocated over September, October, November. And this is something that Corey has designed, I think, pretty well. He's going to be hitting the pavement with WSI just as those decisions come. So technology often enters C-level conversations at two moments, when the budget is approved and when something goes wrong. In the meantime, however, it continues to reshape the business, technology. Technology creates dependencies on systems and vendors, determines which data is available, changes processes, and influences the organization's ability to make decisions, adapt, and grow. Governing technology does not require executives to become technologists. It requires a clear understanding of the organizational consequences of technology decisions, the capabilities those decisions create, and the constraints those decisions may induce over time. A C-level leader's technology maturity is not measured by how many technical details they understand, but by their ability to see the relationship between technology risk, operational continuity, and strategy. In our latest article, we explore how technology can evolve from a cost line into a matter of strategic governance. When transformation stops feeling like progress, why budget alone is no longer enough to govern it, and what is really needed. Well, my guess is he's angling for that orchestration layer. Dr. Tom Core liked this. A Toronto lab solved how to mass produce the polio vaccine, and I hope it's not mRNA technology, and helped end a disease that terrified an entire generation of parents. And we let in 20 to 30 million people without testing for that. And I think we got one or two cases. I'm trying to remember where. So we eradicated it, but we didn't quite end it. And that's the scariest thing about Biden's policy, to bring in voters from around the world, for me. But anyway, we'll live through it because, we'll turn to our kinder angels and ignore things like polio. Hive Buzz HPC is building for the same kind of progress this region has never stopped chasing. This city helped end a disease, and it didn't stop there. One of the things that's coming for disease and medicine is these data centers and these AI, sovereign AI, they're going to create digital twins for each of us. And so a doctor can enter all of your details, and then she can ask the computer, what is the best therapy for you? And then she can run it in AI and see what happens before she tests it on you. That's what's coming. Dr. Tom Core liked this, celebrates this, and I kind of was glad to see it. John Scott C. Miller wrote, noteworthy, Carney needs to be talking to Kraft about a dressing for his non-stop word salads. Mark Carney's strategy is simple. Talk more, say nothing, hope nobody notices. It'll be perfect when Kamala is president. It is exactly what a central banker does. Drone on saying much of nothing of real value. Doug Ford defended the performance like a lapdog instead of challenging it. Canadians aren't buying the word salads anymore. So this is one of the things I've suggested we're up against is government bureaucracy in Canada. I don't know what Dr. Tom Core's reason for liking it. He liked the Accelerator Center. Dr. Tom Core worked at a similar thing. I don't know if it was this center, but he supports this. What happens when you put a room full of ambitious founders together for an honest conversation about confidence? You got an evening full of vulnerability. It's good to be vulnerable. That's one thing I've noticed in my life. The quickest thing to kill a relationship was to show vulnerability, even though the movies celebrate it. Anyway, you get an evening full of vulnerability, practical advice, and the reminder that every founder faces self-doubt, even the ones who seem to have it all figured out. Thank you to everyone who joined us last night at She Talks Tech. Building confidence as a founder at Catalyst Commons. Seeing so many founders and entrepreneurs and community members come together to learn from one another is exactly what this community is all about. A huge thank you to our incredible speakers, Joa Minta, Garsha Amin, and Tara Kani, for sharing your experiences with such openness and generosity. And thank you to our moderator, Danielle Jurowski, for leading a thoughtful conversation. To everyone who joined us, thank you for asking great questions, sharing your perspectives, and making this such an inspiring evening. Here's to building companies with confidence and a community that's behind you every step of the way. The Accelerator Center. And here's the Accelerator Center. These are the founders. They don't list the names. Here's one of the founders. What happens when you put a room full of ambitious founders together for an honest conversation about confidence? I already read that to you. You get an evening full of vulnerability. Anywhere, here's a founder. Here's a founder. Here's the founder. Here, I guess, are founders. And here's the group again. And here are founders. So that's the Canadian founder environment. Okay, so Dr. Kaur liked this. No, it seems out of sequence, but he liked this with digital. It seems out of sequence. Let me just check this one. Well, Dr. Kaur liked this. We're proud to announce AI Valley Inc. has been selected to join Ontario Life Sciences export mission to Mexico City. An exciting opportunity to showcase AI DRIA, Ontario Life Sciences export business mission to Mexico City. And then he liked this. Digital. Now, you remember digital. The key with digital is for Railtown to get funding or the AIP network companies to get funding. They can't apply directly. They have to go in as an amalgamation or as a joint effort with digital leading the way. So this is, I think, what Dr. Kaur is pointing out is that digital, I don't know this, but digital is progressing, and maybe there is some funding coming either for Railtown or for Railtown's network partners. I think that's his purpose, perhaps, for highlighting and liking digital. It might just be that he likes digital. So it says the folks behind digital planning world domination, but in a good way. At our Q2 all hands this week, thanks to McCarthy Tetrol for hosting us with a spectacular view as always. This is the pictures with Laurel Bus and 24 others. So you can see digital hard at work. Here's digital continuing their work with their views and a very productive meeting in the conference room. Laura Greco writes, you know, there's serious planning when there's big sheets of paper out and in-person good vibes. Have fun with you well-intended world domination. And Kim Hockstad says, great team and looks like a very productive day. And then we come to a different type of organization, Cone Labs, that Dr. Kaur liked. Behind Cone Labs is an engineering team. Jyoti Panda, Renato Zampa, Josh Sideris, Fyodor V, Ahmed M, fueled by strong coffee and motive. Now, these guys don't have pads of papers out, big sheets of paper, and they don't even seem to have good vibes. But it's a great, it's a great having the team connect in office. We're not just coworkers, but builders obsessed with solving some of the hardest problems in infrastructure tech. And then they have their pictures here. And I guess they can do their work without a big sheet of paper. I hope they're getting something accomplished. And then Dr. Kaur finished off with what I went through again with Hive Digital, talking about the Itayapu Dam, 380 Eiffel Towers worth of steel and iron. And this again highlights that Hive Digital Technologies' clean energy operations in Paraguay are powered by one of the most ambitious engineering feats humans have ever built. The Itayapu Dam used enough steel and iron to build 380 Eiffel Towers, or I suppose bomb Iran back to the Stone Age. That same ambition now builds what comes next: AI compute and Bitcoin, but AI compute. All right, let me see. Let's just go to the comments and see what we can do from there. Pat M, hi gang. Hi Pat. Jack Hamilton, good afternoon, Mr. William and all RT fans. Let me just see what the stock's doing. It's actually slightly in the green, 2371 by 24. And I think it's holding up pretty well considering, you know. Fast Eddie, how do dollar bill? Sung Hee, good morning. Hi, Sung Hee. Jack Hamilton, thank you very much, Jack Hamilton, $50. I put these up, and I'm only asking because I'm really in urgent need of knocking out some bills. And I'm talking immediately, like Wednesday is a big deadline. And so I put up my Zelle, and I'll leave that there for just a second in case someone is scrolling looking for it. But it's at the beginning of this too. And there, I'm going to take it down 1, 2, 3. And then I put up my Venmo, and I'll leave that there for a second too. And I'll take that down in 1, 2, 3. Anyway, I appreciate it. I don't, from time to time, I ask for help. and I don't charge, and I don't emphasize it, and I don't ask unless I really need it, and I need it. So I am asking for people's help. We'll get through August. We got to get into September, and I think week after I'm done with the I'm just looking for anything I can talk about. But when we're done, I wanted to try to talk about total metals, which I may try. But the girl, I did so much with her, and then she somehow, I guess because Google's now with Apple, or Apple, I don't know, they broke my teamwork with her into two, because I had divided it kind of personal and work. I guess that was the division, but I can't get into it. I can't locate it. And she was very positive, as she's always looks at the bright side of things. So I turned to the Frenchman, and he's a real pill. But I might go through it just to have something to talk about. I'm also very excited about total metals, but he's a pill, and I guess I got to show you the negatives along with the positives. I just don't think he sees everything. I might do that, depending on how much time. I want to show you a little bit of what John Ruffalo said in an interview. And I wouldn't mind showing you what Tom Lee says about the AI and the market in general, because that's what I think is going to happen. I know it doesn't make any sense. The headlines are full of doom and gloom. I just told you what I think about another endless war, but it's weird. And everything looks bad, all the headlines, the stock market's down. That's usually when it's the end of a correction and we start back up. They'll tell you why it happened later on, after it does. All right, let me go back to the comments. Thank you very much, Jack. I really appreciate it. Jack Hamilton, still having trouble with that scan, so I had to go the other route. Thank you for all you do, sir. Thank you, Jack. I appreciate it very much. Pepsi Bones, good morning. I like that name, Pepsi Bones. I wonder what it means, but I like it. CJ Yukon, greetings from Laredo, Texas. Wow, I've never been there. That's where Joe Ely, is he from Laredo? Or he had a song named Laredo? I can't remember. He was great. He died this year. T. Alex, thank you, T. Alex, very much. You've pulled together a great group of people here, making a strong community. Yes, and I don't mean to PISS the community off when I get very strong in my reactions. I don't know all the political things going on. I don't know all the risks. And I do think that Donald Trump has a keen sense of humanity and a keen sense of doing the right thing. So hopefully we can pull back from the real brink. But having said that, I think we've gone too far with Iran to even reopen negotiations. It may have to wait until the next president. And it looks like that might be, I'm kind of surprised, but it looks like on the Republican side, it's going to be J.D. Vance. And I think Iran would make a deal with JD Vance. I really thought Rubio was going to pull out ahead, and he'll have all the backing of Miriam Adelson and the rest. Because if the Zionists can count on one vote, it's Marco Rubio's. So we'll see how that goes. But my gosh, if the Democrats win, which is my feeling, because the rhinos are going to make sure the Democrats can continue to cheat and continue to have non-citizens vote. Why is that a debatable point? Why should people who are not citizens get to vote? That's screwball thinking. But that's where we're headed. Tastrup, MMTLP, what happened? Not all have dividend, only AST. It's all fake. That's the way I see it. Well, let me see if there's any news. That what's going on there? What's going?
Ground ball hit towards the second baseman Silva, flips to the shortstop for one. Third at first in time. Vargas stakes it out, and the Pelicans.
Why did that happen? I didn't go to the Myrtle Beach Pelicans. I like that name. Let me quickly look up TAA Stroop. Let me look up NextBridge, his website, and let's just see if there's any update, just in case. Oh, that's not it. But I'll tell you what I think's going on. And partly it's that we expect so much from our markets that just isn't there. All right, there's no new news from NextBridge. I haven't looked myself, but I am sure by now that I've had gout in my index finger for 2 weeks and it won't go away. And if I hit the wrong way, but it's anyway, I tend to complain about gout. I'm so grateful it's only in my finger and I can walk. Sometimes I get gout so bad I have to crawl. So I shouldn't be complaining. I'm sorry. All right. So NextBridge issued a dividend, 1 for 30. And I don't know what their total outstanding shares are. I can't remember what their outstanding shares are. Well, let me look at the S1. Let's see what it says. Nothing. I wish I could remember it so I don't have to look it up. Well, whatever it is, let's see. It was, they're allowed to issue 500 million. and I think it was 165 million that were out, and they're doing 40 million. No. I think it was 265 million, and they're doing 40 million, so it gets to 300 million. I think that's right. So can I just make it up? Because I don't remember. Let's say there's 250. Let's say there's 300 million shares outstanding. Fully diluted. So the dividend is dividend is 10 million shares issued by NextBridge, and NextBridge gives them to the transfer agent for allocation. And I'm sure that that's already happened. I'm sure those 10 million have already come to Equinity from NextBridge. Now, what Equinity does, and this is the part that you're kind of annoyed with, and it's the part that we think there's fairness, there's no fairness. The 10 million shares that Equinity has goes to so the 10 million shares, it goes to, I'm just used two names, but it goes to me at Equinity, because my shares are held by Equinity. It goes to Junk Savity at Equinity. My latest information from her call, I think she moved all of her shares. It's just by memory. And then it goes to other shareholders who have their shares at Equinity. Now, I haven't checked, but I'm sure it's there. I'm sure I got my 142 shares or 162 or whatever it was. But the rest of it goes to the 104 broker dealers in their name at the Depository Trust Corporation. And I'm sure that happened. So I think that whole 10 million shares have been distributed by the company and by Equinity. But then the issue comes, I mean, I think Fidelity might be one of the biggest problems. If Fidelity received 100,000 shares, and that's probably high, at the DTC, but has to distribute, my guess is they're one of the great offenders. They might have to distribute So I believe, I'm making these numbers up, but Fidelity might have 100,000 shares, but I'm sure they already have whatever it is. It might be less than this at the DTC. Their problem is they've got to distribute those shares, 1 for 30. They might have to distribute 2 million shares into their system, and they don't have it. So what happened before, Ann Wagner thinks it's okay that it's hidden. You'd see it if there were an audited trail. But what happened before is over time, the funds, the hedge funds, your funds, got 1 share to trade out of Frankfurt on the Chicago. I think on the options exchange. I don't know exactly how it works. But once they got 1 share to trade, they could start flooding the market with shorts. Now, attorneys are going to say that doesn't exist. Regulators are going to say it doesn't exist. If you Google, they're going to say it doesn't exist. You can't prove it. But you can see it in the volume and the stock price. Anyway, we use the word shorted. They created stock out of thin air and sold it. But the prime brokers made money by extending both stock, but also extending the time to deliver to the market makers. The market makers bring this business in. The market makers are just computers. There are humans there, but it's pretty much nothing like market makers used to be. They don't maintain an orderly market. They're just there for the fraud. But Ann Wagner wants no examination of it. So in this case, Fidelity, I don't know if they're split this way, but I assume so. They've got the brokerage firm and the prime broker. They make a lot of money lending out their stock, hypothecating, rehypothecating into this demand for selling stock that doesn't exist by the offshore accounts, and it's all hidden. It creates revenue for the prime broker, Fidelity. It creates free cash balances, which Fidelity loves, and it's a lot of commission, a lot of interest, a lot of fees. Well, it never bites them in the butt, because even in any kind of merger acquisition or combo, as Jessica Hopper wrote in one of her emails, hey, why don't we just move the position over to Nextridge like we always do? Because they always move it. There is no effort by the regulators to solve this issue. It's fraud, it's illegal, except under Bill Clinton. Under Bill Clinton, whether he was aware of it or not, or he was busy, not having sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky, under his oversight, Secretary Rubin was able to get the UCC Section 8 changed such that your brokerage firm, when you buy a share of stock, your brokerage firm gives you a securities entitlement. It entitles you to a percentage ownership of whatever is held in street name at the DTCC in your brokerage firm's name. Well, further, Bill Clinton signed into law what I recall was named the Graham-Bliley-Leach Act, which said that under Rubin, the argument is that Street didn't need to be regulated, we'll just regulate ourselves. We're not going to make stupid mistakes. We're not going to put our own companies at risk. Come on, Bill. We all went to school with you. We're all smart. And we'll give your wife some money. So when she runs for president, she'll have a big campaign. So he signed that. So the two things happened is it allowed the brokerage firms to give you a security entitlement. The second thing is it allowed derivatives to be created against those DTC street name positions. And it did quite a few things. It allowed that, and some of it was layered in over time, but if over this period of time, it allowed those positions to be lent out under derivatives, but it allowed those claim holders on the derivatives to have first claim on your stock. First claim on your stock. So what became important is that Wall Street hide the trading. They get Ann Wagner to go along. They get Adina Friedman to go along. They get Chuck E. Cheese Cromwell to go along and not question. And they get the brokerage firms to go along to not question what they're doing, because the only risk is a run on the bank. So they have Reg Show. And Reg Show allows market makers, bona fide market makers, to sell stock that doesn't exist, to sell stock that hasn't been located, to sell stock that isn't going to be delivered, just on a phone call. Oh, hey, what are you selling? Are you good for it? Do you own it? Yeah, we own it. Okay, good enough. And they get a Reg Show exemption. So they get extra time to deliver the stock. They also get extra time because Ann Wagner doesn't feel it's important to trace it. They get extra time to hide those trades, to move those trades, to lie about those trades. So they can move trades into another LLC. They can move it offshore. And in Europe, it's so bad. If you do, Europe doesn't care. And Europe will destroy the records, or if they even keep records in the first instance. In the United States now, they're trying to advance that after 3 years, all records are destroyed. My friend, it is a planned theft of your assets. And when you say it's all fake, you're 100% right. You're 100% right. 100%. So the extra thing they put in there, I don't know if it was under Bill Clinton or later on, but they also have it in Europe, is that if your financial institution like that 12 company or like Fidelity or like MFS Global goes into bankruptcy, goes into receivership, if they go into receivership, your brokerage firm, or into bankruptcy, whatever, it might be the same thing. The person or the entity who is the other side of the derivative, who has claim on those shares, they can suck them out of the estate, suck them out of the assets of the brokerage firm prior to the bankruptcy judge making her ruling. Because in bankruptcy, it's kind of like going into the twilight zone. The laws are still the laws, but things can get moved and changed and spin around and warped I assume in a good way by whatever the judge wants to do. But she's not going to have access to those assets. They are already taken out by law. It's incredible. And it protects the banks, not you. And it protects the people that are shorting, not you. We use the term shorting, but it's really inaccurate. This is a systematized industrial scale plan to thieve from retail. And that's why institutions don't trade down here unless there's a really good opportunity. Otherwise, they just stay away. So MMTLP, what happened, not all have dividend, only at AST. It's all fake, the way I see it. I agree with you. So here's the thing. I don't know where you hold your account, but let's say it's at Fidelity under this is my story. I'm making it up. But under Fidelity, if Fidelity's in trouble, the first time around, the computers were set to automatically issue the shares. So as the people in Frankfurt and in Montreal and Burroughs Park and Cayman Islands, they start selling stock they haven't located and they have no intention of delivering, and they might be doing it against derivatives. The computers are set up to all day long accept those trades. Whether it's intraday, swing trades, monthly, they're going to hold it till they kill the company, whatever. Well, if for some reason the stock stops trading, which happened with MMTLP, the compliance officer or the regional operations manager, principal, ROP, can say, oh, well, that was just our computers. Well, you didn't know about it? And she can say, no, it was just set that way. And it was approved and it's under this, and you'll have to talk to, and it gets buried and back and forth with attorneys. So the first time the SEC realizes they're not going to win because white-shoed law firm, it's Bill Clinton's UCC, we're not going to win this. Let's not waste our energy. Because they can argue that there's enough there that was legal. It was a preset thing on their computers. They didn't mean to break any laws. It's, it wasn't great, but it's not illegal. I mean, that's going to be the argument. Well, then you get now, using Fidelity, this same situation. The only way that the ROP can do this, put security entitlements into your account named MMTLP for this dividend, is if she authorizes it. And then her career's on the line. She is doing something. She's consciously doing something after she knows the situation Fidelity's in that can be interpreted as securities fraud. And I don't think she's going to want to do that. And my guess is that's the dilemma going on. I'm using the name Fidelity as an example. That's the dilemma going on at Fidelity. Should we give TAAS Stroop his shares as a MMTLP dividend, because frankly, they'll eat the loss. In a normal situation, they would just eat the loss. If for some reason too many people came in asking for shares, they'd eat it. It's a minor thing. But in this case, there's no open trading market where they can go buy shares. If they go buy shares at on the offering from Roth, they may, I don't know, I'm not an attorney, they may be setting up precedent, and they may be creating acknowledgement of something they did wrong there. They may want a blanket pardon from Congress or something. I don't know how all that goes. But they've got a real dilemma here in that if they issue to you, like was automatically done when the stock was free to trade and the computers were doing it, if they issue to you a security entitlement called MMTLP, there is no public market. There are no computers. There's no derivative right now. They're just literally giving you something that doesn't exist. Well, in any other industry, that'd be called fraud. And she doesn't want to go to prison. She doesn't want to lose her career. So I'm sure it's with their attorneys. And I'm sure it's causing the pressure point that Greg McCabe wanted it to. And yes, I think your assessment is it's all fake is 100% true. I think that's the reaction you should have. But I also think the fact that there's nothing in your account yet, I personally, I think they're going to end up find a workaround. They'll come up with some document that covers their ass, and they'll put something in there that's I'm very skeptical that they're going to get caught out. But I think what you should take away from it as a positive, they haven't put it in yet. They're having a hard time coming up with the paperwork that covers their own ass. It's career risk now. And when careers are on the line, you fall in behind. I don't think that was a very good quote. But I agree with you. It all sucks. I'm so sick of talking about any of it. I want to just get away from it all. But we will. T. Alex, good for you, man. T. Alex added 14,900. Wow, 33 and a half. I love it. I love it. You didn't wait for 33. I love it. Congratulations. Joe Marty. Nice work, T. Alex. I grabbed 900 more this morning. I wish I could have grabbed 15. I wish I could too. But grabbing has nothing to do with it. T. Alex, Joe Marty, that's awesome. You are steady Eddie. Ricky Brogan, T. Alex, congratulations. Ricky Brogan, Joe Marty, congratulations. I can't bend my finger. Sorry to look so weird. All right, so now I think what I'm going to do is look And I'm going to see which one is the shortest first. I feel badly for Trump, but it was his decision. I just don't think he can get out of it. I just don't think he can get out of it. It's a lot like taking a recommendation from somebody you trust and then realizing you're buried in it. All right, which one comes up first? I told her to leave me alone. And that's what she's done. Yes, that's what she's done. And the house built for two just isn't a home. When it's lived in by one, oh, one lonely one. And I can no longer hear footsteps down the hall. Here come the teardrops, bitter they are. The harder they fall. Well, that's a shame. I cannot find. Oh, here it is. I did find it for Tom Lee. Let's just hear what he says for a little bit. I won't play the whole thing because I think that might. I don't think it's a violation because it's an interview. But this is from Global Money Talk, and it's Tom Lee.
Much, much higher new all-time highs. So if someone is long these names, they should stay long.
All right, let's see what Tom Lee says.
I don't know when the correction ends, but once it ends, I think the current stock market, the AI stocks, the memory names, the semis are going to make much, much higher new all-time highs. So if someone is long these names, they should stay long. If they sold and got out and then they're waiting for a signal get in, they're going to end up chasing markets higher. Selling your winners is like cutting your flowers and watering the weeds. Our bet is that inflation is going to undershoot expectations. People are too focused on oil as a driver of inflation, and we've already had the oil shock. So I think we've had peak inflationary impact from oil. Crypto has so many catalysts. Clarity Act is going to provide a single agency to have oversight of the entire crypto economy. That doesn't exist today. It's state regulated and there's fragmented regulation. Japan and other countries are already taking a similar version of Clarity Act. Russia just passed one. So the US obviously has to catch up.
Today, we are delighted to have Tom Lee, co-founder and head of research for Fundstrat Global Advisors and CIO of Granny Shots ETF. He's the former chief equity strategist for JP Morgan and also chairman of the BitMine Immersion Technologies company. Tom, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So on June 22nd, the Korean index, the Kospi, reaches almost 9,300. The same day, the SOX gets reaches a high as well. And then in the last month, it's really taken a serious tumble. And people are asking why the impulsive rally, then the sudden turn, or in some ways, are we following the Kospi? Is the Kospi following us, or is it just a global concern that we've overdone the AI trade?
Well, Korea has been doing really well for more than just 2026, really the last few years. And the underlying story there is the world is using a lot more semiconductors and memory for every unit of GDP output, which means Korea as an economy and Korea as a stock market is a lot more important in the next decade than it's been in the prior 30 years, even 50 years. So earnings should be doing really well. Now, stock markets are what you call, quote, price discovery mechanisms. And it made sense that Korea's stock market should be going up. But in the last few quarters, leverage products were added. And that amplifies volatility. So I think in some ways the sharp move up and then the recent record decline are adjusting for that leverage. Because as you know, markets, when they go straight up, they trap what they call longs get trapped. And especially those with leverage, and then they're forced to sell. So I think that there's been a forced deleveraging taking place. But that doesn't mean that the underlying story is ended. So I think that this pullback is going to prove to be one of the best buying opportunities for semis and AI stocks. And by transitive logic, the Korean stock market. I don't know when the correction ends, but once it ends, I think the Korean stock market, the AI stocks, the memory names, the semis are going to make much, much higher new all-time highs.
I guess it's hard to see before you actually see it, but what kind of signal would you be looking for to say that, the retracement has ended and now this is the opportunity, or maybe the opportunity is now and you stagger your way in? What's the signal that you would be potentially looking for?
First, it never pays to time the market. So if someone is long these names, they should stay long. If they sold and got out and then they're waiting for a signal get in, they're going to end up chasing markets higher. Nobody ever calls the bottom correctly. However, the thing that you want to see, which is massive deleveraging, has already taken place. So if you look at prime brokerage data for U.S. investment banks, hedge funds degrossed, quote degrossed, meaning that they already sold their tech longs at the fastest pace in almost 3 years. In fact, if you go past, it would be really the fastest pace in almost 10 years. So they had a massive, massive deleveraging already. And we already see some very, very high profile stories about how there's been a massive deleveraging in Korea. So if people had to be forced to sell, those are called like weak hands. They've been shaken out. I'd say that we should be pretty close to a bottom. But again, I think, the mistake people make is they chase things. They try to time the top and they try to time the bottom. And most people who've done the best are the ones who stay invested. In fact, as Peter Lynch famously said, selling your winners is like cutting your flowers and watering the weeds, And maybe even better, I think when there's a secular theme like AI, which involves more semis and memory for every unit of GDP output, Charlie Munger said it the best. He says, the money isn't in buying and selling. The money is made in waiting, So if there's a structural theme, they should just own it and then forget about it.
In fact, I remember one of the phrases you told me in one of our meetings.
So you can find that on Global Money Talk, but that's my point. That's the argument that we've all had to deal with. I think we have to wait. We have to hold. The hard part, you have done tremendous due diligence here, tremendous due diligence on Railtown and on AI. And I like both messages. That's about as far as I listened, not quite that far, but I didn't listen to the whole thing. And I feel like I shouldn't play, it's somebody else's channel. But the two things. One is once you understand the value of what you own, you got to constantly test, am I changing my mind? Am I right? But once you have that, all you can do is wait. And I had a guy, pretty much in a polite way, hammer me. When are you going to give up on Railtown? Well, he seems quite prescient now that it's, 8 months later, 7 months later, and the darn thing is still down. But I still stubbornly stick by that nothing has happened to indicate that Railtown's theory, its thesis, its story has changed. In fact, I think it's gotten better. And the stock price isn't telling you anything. The stock price is a bunch of scummy reapers coordinating with each other and cheating. And Ann Wagner thinks it's okay because she wants to protect your privacy. All right, let me show you. We can come back to this one, but not right now. If I need something to show you, we can come back to that. That's Tom Lee. But I want to show you this one. I don't know what he says here, but I showed you where Dr. Tom Core liked something. It led to this.
600 or 700 million. And I think that the markets have gotten so far ahead of themselves. I'm not saying these are bad businesses. I'm just saying they're grossly overvalued. Now that investment needs a 3x, and we discovered it was at 600 or 700 million. I can't remember what it was. Now the exit needs to be at a $2 billion exit. Everybody and their mother is now a defense specialist all of a sudden with zero capabilities. And it is a very complicated sector. Replace the word oil with data, right? If you're just taking the oil out of the ground, exporting it at whatever lower price, and then you're buying it back at 10x the value.
That's John Ruffalo.
All right, John, welcome back to the tank. It's been a while. You got a bit of a glow on your face here. I guess that means the sun is out from beyond the inferno that we've been living in, unfortunately, here in Toronto. Having the worst air quality in the world was not something on my 2026 bingo card. Was it on yours?
No, but it's funny. I was just talking to some of my American friends and colleagues, and they were giving us a little poke. Go, hey, it's coming over us in Pennsylvania, and I said, hey, you're the one who threw up the greenhouse gases up our way, so we're even right now.
Hey, and we showed up with our fighter jets, our firefighter planes down to California when they needed it. So it goes both ways. But there is the conversation about the World Cup game, I guess, where people are a little bit nervous about the air quality in New York on Sunday. So we'll see how that plays out, right?
Yeah. Well, exactly. And we'll see Messi.
You went to the game. Tell us about that. How was it?
Which I didn't go to that. I didn't go to Messi.
No, you went to the Argentina game, didn't you?
No.
Which one did you see?
No, I saw Portugal.
Oh, yeah, Portugal.
Yeah, but little side note. So this is my fourth World Cup. My first one was 2006 quarterfinal, Berlin, Argentina, Germany, and some young punk comes out as a sub in like the 60th, 70th minute. Didn't know who it was, and everybody's screaming Messi. So I was there on his first game. So
that's amazing. All right, John. Well, we've been off the tank for a while, but let's get back into it. Biggest story, I think, of the week is something that you were personally connected to back when you were at OMERS, was OMERS unfortunately taking a big hit on this Touch Bistro acquisition. From all players, Constellation Software for $100 million. So for our listeners who don't know much about Touch Bistro, well-known Canadian darling, tech company, restaurant POS software company. They were high flying. They were adding a lot a lot of dollars, a lot of zeros during the time when everybody was trying to get online and trying to get, their POS systems up and running. But I think after a little bit of a pullback in the markets after 2021, the opportunity to sell to potentially Lightspeed and others in the space, they ended up having to pull back the reins.
No one's
put in
interested
a new
in
CEO,
you.
and was not able to catch up on product or revenue. And this was the end of the story for Touch
No one
Bistro.
cares
I'd
what
love
you
to get
think.
your take, John, in sort of the early days
Let
of,
him
when you
talk.
invested in the company, what you saw in the business and what you were hoping for, and maybe where you think some things went wrong here.
Yeah, and again, I don't want to play too much armchair quarterback because my involvement with them ended in 2018. So a little bit of the backstory. I've known Alex Barati, the founder, many, many years. He reminds me that I turned him down 2 or 3 times. And the issue was, and I'll tell you the issue in the restaurant industry for me, it's my bias. It's already a very, very thin razor margin business. And if anything goes wrong, like who would have predicted COVID? The economics are very, very tough, and there's big churn as a result. So I was very reluctant on that. But what happened is they hit an inflection point when we invested. I think it started end of 2017. It may have closed in early 2018 or something like that. But they really transformed into a solid ARR business, and it was a true SaaS business, and it was about, I think, 30-ish million of revenues. But you can clearly see that they were going to hit 50 million very, very soon. And we went in, I think it was a $30 million check then. But I expected that the exit would have been at somewhere between a 500 million and 750 million, something like that. And you get your 3x return. And it was executing on that basis. And my understanding, and then I left, of course, but in my understanding, COVID hit. And not only did it stall the growth, it just went the other way. And, that's a black swan event, of course, but they did recover, not the same level, but I understood that they recovered a big chunk of it. But 2 things happened, and I made a comment on it. Number one is, and you're the same as you gotta watch when you switch out your founders. They are the most passionate. They're the ones who will go through the walls. And I guess the question is, it sounds like Alex didn't want to leave, and there was some sort of massive debate there. And that's usually problem number 1 when a founder doesn't leave voluntarily. But number 2, and Matt, I don't know if you and I had chatted about it, maybe not, but when they did that big equity, and I put equity in quotes, with Francisco Partners, you immediately read it, and I looked at it too, and I was like, that's not equity, that's a debt.
It was convertible debt of 150 million in 2022.
But when you read the original news, it implied it was a growth equity investment. Mm-hmm. And this is to your listeners. There's nothing wrong with debt. I love debt when you have a business and getting some leverage into the business. But when you are trying to have a recovery of your business, taking a debt instrument like that with a sunset on there and a very nasty penalty and accrued interest, and it was likely PIK interest, mm-hmm. You are making a binary bet on the company. So the company was gone in 2022, in my view.
Right.
The only way that they're ungone is if they really overperformed, and it's clear that they did not. That's the sad part of it, and it was that architecture and that decision. Again, I don't know all the details, but that is a fatal decision, and one that I really do wonder why that was made.
What advice, though, do you have for founders, John? Because in that situation, they did the $158 million round in 2019, of which $100 million came from Omer's growth equity.
Yeah.
Which they're going to recover, I think, around $2 million from.
$2 million,
which is crazy. But that was that time, okay? 2019.
Then pause there. Can you pause there? That's where the noose started. Okay. So I'm not going to give people confidential details, but let's just say that the valuation done only a year and a bit, or a year later, call it a year later, right, was triple the value done the year before. Okay. So all of a sudden now, here's what happens. I just told you I did a late stage investment, and you underwrite it generally at a 3x. You now do another round, a big round, and I think they did some secondaries in there too. That investment needs a 3x, and we discovered it was at 600 or 700 million. I can't remember what it was. Now the exit needs to be at a $2 billion exit. Did that really set the conditions in advance that they had to say no to everything? And I guess it got reported that Alex had a couple of offers in that $700 or $800 million range. Right. That's where I think it all cascaded.
So for listeners, though, that are founders on this sort of path where they are over their skis in terms of their last valuation, the last amount of funding they have a potential partner at the table, a private equity firm like Francisco Partners that is going to put in a convertible note. It's got covenants. It's got, PIK interest. It's got, potential, daggers waiting in front of you if you don't continue on a good path. What do you suggest they consider alternatives of? I have my suggestion. What do you think?
Great question, Matt. I strongly do this, and founders have heard me tell them this. And all of this is about valuation. Take the valuation hit now. Don't listen to your investors who are begging you that they don't want to show the write down in their books because they're going to be fundraising again. That's for them. If you don't deal with the valuation, you screw your employees, which in this case, all of their options were wiped out. You are screwing yourself because you're putting a noose around your neck, and you are causing that next round of financing to put in the constructs of a deal, of an instrument that is a horrible instrument, like what Francisco Partners did. Francisco did something very, very logical, but they had to because it came off such a massive valuation.
And they even took a loss too.
Yeah, they took a small loss too, yes. But so my strong message to the founders is be realistic in your valuations. And by the way, if you get wiped out on ESOPs, etc., a good investor will allow you to reprice new ones and get you back on track.
Right. I think what you're saying is take the medicine. Don't worry about your investors game in terms of the valuation marks. Do the right thing for the business. Cut wherever you can and make the hard decisions now when you have time versus when you have no time to make them at the end. I think that's great advice. Speaking of OMERS, they have come back with a pretty big investment in a big Canadian company.
Who cares what you think? All right. I guess that's the
going
sign.
Out and raising.
That's the sign to stop that. That's the sign to stop that. All right. So you can follow that on the Tank Talk podcast. Not very many people watching it. That guy talks too much. He's probably like me. But, when I do interviews, I try not to talk so much. I try to let the other person talk. It's hard to do, when you have so much to say, like I do, and you're always right. It's hard not to talk when you're always right. But anyway, I like, what comes across there to me about John Ruffalo. It's not the first time I've been impressed by him, but he knows what he's doing, and he knows. I happen to agree with him. You got to take the hit. You got to be honest. You got to stop living in fantasy land, and you just got to do it. It sucks, but you got to do it. And this other guy is correct. If you have a valid business idea and you go to a good financial firm or an investor, they'll usually let the employees and the insiders re-up on their incentives because it's in their interest. But to me, if you're a CEO and you have a big ownership in something, you cannot allow that to affect your judgment of what's the right call. And the right call is very, very rarely doing a bad financing. Now, we have to appreciate that that's the only financing that's available out there. But like a finger motion, for example, I happen to have met a lot of their investors, great people with money. But, I guess everybody runs out of money at any one time. Even wealthy don't always, I had a lot of assets, but right when it mattered, I couldn't effing raise. Unbelievable. But anyway, everybody gets down to their last shuck. So companies, for example, like we're in Railtown. Railtown did list on the over-the-counter with the intention of raising money. I personally think we're lucky that they didn't, but we don't know how they would have done it on the other hand. But the thing is, once you take a financing from a Lind Partners or what do the Kramers call their thing? They always have fancy names. It sounds great. It's just 8 guys on Long Island that have money that have been taught since they were growing up, use other people's money. I don't know. That's one thing. The priest yesterday, we have a new priest and he's young and earnest, but he just kept talking about the prize. There's greater prizes. You can dedicate your life to going after pearls. That's what he kept saying. And you sell everything to buy the pearl, but the greatest prize, obviously, in the Catholic view, and I happen to agree with it as a Catholic, is, getting to heaven. That's the greatest prize. But anyway, when he talked about it, he talked about, your pursuit of anything, whatever it is, whether it's honors or, awards, or you're pursuing fame, or you're pursuing owning car. And he said there's room for that in your life. You just can't get lost on the rest of it. But he said if you're pursuing money, then you make money your God, and you're not supposed to have other gods. I don't know how to reconcile all that in this world, because I think it's a very difficult world. Even Mother Teresa had to go to people with money. I mean, how do you get through this world without money? I don't know. So I don't want to judge it. But these guys, the Kramers and the Eastons, is just all this gross pursuit of money with no risk, and it's just taking advantage of people that are down. It's just disgusts me. But the laws, technically, the laws allow it because the attorneys have built it up over time, and Congress and Wagner looks the other way. And I learned, to be accurate, I was reminded, I had forgotten, because we had to study all that. But I've never been an attorney. But I learned, I guess it was this last Saturday, not this one, the previous one, when I did a little research, that the securities acts there was a debate, and to get them passed, the compromise was that it was all about disclosure, not about, if you make a bad bargain, there's nothing illegal about that. So then you fall back on usury laws. And I think every one of Kramer's deals, Easton's deals, Rubenstein's deals, I think, and this guy Weil, they all break usury laws in spirit. But hey, if you got good attorneys, you can win on the nit points. And they write everything. It just, ugh. I hope, and I mean it, I do hope that when they meet their maker, that their maker sees it the same way, that was a life well lived. I can't judge them. At least they can, provide for their families and etc. I can't judge it. But I wouldn't want to take that risk, making greed about money my whole life. I don't know. But on the other hand, I think money gives you choices. It allows you to protect your friends and family, and it allows you to get through what's coming next. So I can't sing. I can't hit a fastball or a curveball. I can't marry well. So I can do what seems to be the thing that I've been directed to do. All right, it's 3 o'clock. Let's look at the prices. I'll go through these comments. Railtown looks pretty strong to me, frankly. It's 23.71 by 24. Now it's 23.7 by 23.99. But that barcoding, that spoofing, there doesn't seem to be all that. So I think they don't want it to trade at 24. I'll admit that. But the gap between the bid and the ask is ever so narrow. It's 0.37 by 0.399. I mean, it's basically 0.003. I mean, it's 0.0029. It's very small. So I think that's, to me, what Railtown is telling me. And call me ever optimistic. Railtown trades like something's behind the scenes. Railtown trades like somebody somewhere knows something. Railtown trades like one of these days to the moon, Alice. No, not to the moon. One of these days it'll open or it'll trade up to 40 cents, 50 cents, and you're going to be looking at that screen slack-jawed and you're going to go, what the heck's going on? You're going to search and search and search and not find anything. And then maybe after the close that day or maybe 3 days later, some announcement will come out that Mark Carney left his wife for Katy Perry and Pierre Trudeau is crying. I don't know. Something, some momentous news announcement. But Railtown looks pretty good. What are the other things doing? Fingers up slightly at 26.94. It's up 0.0045. You know, anytime things are down, they can have a bounce back. In order to rescue finger, it's going to have to be one big check and a big penalty. Could somebody do it? Yeah. I can think of the person who rescued finger before. Is it likely? I don't know. GDC, it's up 0.1738 at 187.38. Nixie's down 0.1324 at 0.7151. And COSM, I hope it drops off my list, is up 0.0001 at 20 cents. And remember, that did something like a 500 for one split. So it's, if you were in it before, you've been zeroed out on that one. I think the only answer to the dilemma in the markets is for there needs to be a policy change from above. I think Trump still has enough credibility to do it, but if he waits until after the elections, Ann Wagner will lose her seat and we'll be back to sourpuss Maxine Waters, and they won't do anything. Yeah, it's just, it's not very exciting. Oh, poor little girl. All right, some more things here. Thank you for your comments. Justin Babish, I bought, wow, 1,100 more. And of course, my pen don't work. Let me make my pen work. I told her to leave me alone, and that's what she's done. Yes, that's what she's done. And a house built for two just isn't a home. All right, T. Alex and Justin B., congratulations. Way to go, Chestnut says. Ricky Brogan says, Justin Babish, congratulations. Yay. And Neil Gondek says, hi, everyone. On the CSE today, let's look at the CSE. Let's just look at it. Railtown right now in the CSE is 33.5 cents. So Neil is saying, hi, everyone on the CSE today, 33 cents plus or minus. They have been, I guess they have been relentless all day with nearly 150,000 across the tape so far. All right, let's look. 141,103. Let's see if there's any Fox noise. Nope. No news. Something is definitely going on, which in my humble opinion is major accumulation by entities. All right, so I like what Neil is suggesting to you, and I think it's possible. I think the two places where you could see buying is it has to be a technology fund. It's by definition, I think it has to be sort of a young or small fund that's being aggressive to make their name. And I think by definition, if you want to assume away any of that argument, let's not call it quiet period, let's call it blackout or NDAs. If you want to assume that away, the place to come for those funds are the United States, New York City, maybe Chicago, maybe Palo Alto, but New York City. So I think one obvious to me place where there could be buying over this August is a small, and in New York, small is big compared to Canada, but a small technology type fund with a mandate to invest in AI, a fund which hasn't been that successful competing with the bigger pools of money. Because remember, if you're a Sequoia or I can't remember the other names in the syndicate that did the Langchain deal, but if you're a Sequoia and someone from a Goldman Sachs fund is asking for allocation, you're going to give it to them, or a Morgan Stanley. Why? The Goldman Sachs or the Morgan Stanley can give you syndicate. They can give you IPO. They can give you the hot stocks to give you performance in your funds. It's such a circle. There's no price discovery that involves open call. It's going back to TAAS. It is all fake. I think he's right. But so if you're a smaller fund, you're not getting those allocations of Langchain or some of the other deals. So what's your choice? Always put in for the deals, hope you'll get scraps, take the deals when they give them to you, even though they might be losers, because when it comes to you, you're not going to get the hot deals. And maybe you can work your way up that calendar, that syndicate calendar, but probably not. So what's your other choice? Do homework, work hard, and find. This is my theory. You can have a different one, but the hottest, quote unquote, hottest space in Wall Street for funding right now is this so-called orchestration layer. In general, this layer that's the cartilage between the heavy user demand, which is going to turn into agentic AI demand, agent to agent demand, and the raw iron. You need that thing in between that makes the knee work. Otherwise, you just got raw against raw, and it's going to break down, and it's not going to provide product. So I think money's went to all the other hot areas of AI, but I think the huge capital push is for these layers. We read it. Private equity is hogging, husbanding, collecting, hoarding the orchestration layer companies. So anyway, I would imagine that as Railtown has come out with its commercialization phase, with its name changing a little bit, but also as Railtown can be a little more open, as the AI for all occurs, as the TELUS announcements come out, maybe even the Hive announcements come out, maybe phone calls are being made. Maybe people are saying, hey, pal, you should look at this one. So anyway, I bet there's a fund possible. there's a aggressive fund in New York while everyone else goes to the Hamptons, and the powerful portfolio managers are on vacations. Either they're there with their wives, or they're there with their husbands, or they're just going there hoping to meet a husband. It shows my bias, but I think at least the younger men are going to try to prove they're good at what they do, and they're going to get a bonus, and they're going to try to hit performance levels because they have to. They don't have any other choice. Nobody's going to marry them. They don't have more than one option here to hit the big time. So I think it's possible a New York fund has sussed out Railtown. Another possibility, there are funds in Canada that may never have heard about Railtown. Again, I would assume these are the smaller funds, the funds that don't have immediate access to Canaccord Genuity's research or immediate access. They're not on the Rolodex of Mike Norbrega, or they're not going to be the call when a deal's being organized. So maybe they're free as a bird. And if they've done a little homework, and if they've gotten a call from maybe a Hive or a client that heard about Uniserve or heard about, hey, this looks interesting. So that's another source. It could be new Canadian funds who never were bound in the first place. All right, so what would be the mechanics? And I think Neil's alluding to this. You would, if you have your own systems, and I think in the time of AI and in the time of cheap computers, why not? You would put in your own program to buy shares, or you would go to a market maker that maybe you have some trust level with on the buy side, and you would let them work it for you. I doubt that, because I don't think there's any market makers to trust. But you could also go to a broker and you could say, I want to buy these shares, and that broker wants your business. And a lot of brokers are honest. They turn on their machines on the buy side. And so I think what Neil's noticing, and it's what I'm sensing, so I might be mixing my view with Neil's, I don't mean to speak for Neil, is I think there's a bid in there. I think the algorithmic machines, they're like that scene, those scenes in The Matrix when those machines chase the submarines or the ships, and then all of a sudden they fall away. I mean, it's not exactly like that, but they're so persistent, and then they stop. I think they recognize there's a bid in there, and right now the bid is 23. Well, let's go to Canada and look at what the bid and ask is showing. Let me get an update. Can I get a witness? The bid is 20,000, and the current bid is 32.5 in Canada. The ask is only 1,000 shares, and the bid broker is Latimer, 500 shares. That's nothing. If we go to the I don't see anything else. All right, let me go by price. There's a bid, 20,000 shares, and apparently 7 different bids for total, I guess, a total of 32.5. I don't know their shorthand here. Let's see recent trades. Not much. Anonymous. Yeah, I don't get a service that gives me much to tell you about. But what I think's going on is the robots that are selling, they recognize the buying, so they pulled away. That's how it seems to be trading to me. Now, they haven't pulled fully away. The bid that's in there accumulating, is professional. And they're not going to chase it up. They're going to see how much they can buy until they are met, until they're somebody else is bidding. Right now, they're probably the only bidder. So why not wait? Why not wait? They're going to see how much they can accumulate. Today, I don't know how much is real. 141,000 shares. I don't know. I wasn't watching it. I don't know how to tell. But if you assume the buying is real, which I would assume, they're accumulating. If they accumulate 100,000 shares a day for 10 days, they got 1 million shares. And for a small fund, that might be a good position, but I wouldn't think they would stop there. But a professional will work the order, is all I'm saying. And that's what it looks like to me. I really think that the robots, the sellers have pulled away. They recognize a bid in there. I don't think it's this 33.5. Right now, there's 20,000 at 32.5. I'm not sure. I'm not convinced that that's this bigger bid that's trying to accumulate, but I don't know. I would guess that the bigger bid is maybe at T. Alex's original price, somewhere around 33 cents. But every time they test, every time the computers on the downside have been testing, they've been sensing there's no weakness and there's a buyer gobbling it all up. So they've just pulled back. They don't need to make money every single day. They got other stocks they can go punish. Anyway, I think it's very exciting. I think it's a turn. I really do sense that it's a turn in the fortunes of our fortunes, but also in the trading of Railtown. And this is just the signals of it. There'll come a day where they haven't, let's say this, whoever it is, let's just say they've accumulated 500,000 shares. And let's say they're going to try for this week, and into next week, they get another 500,000 shares under 35 cents in Canada. Let's just say that happens. Well, all of a sudden, let's say somebody else joins the bidding, and it starts moving a little bit. Well, they have an advantage. They already have 500,000 at the nice price. They can start moving their bid up and competing. Now, they won't get into an amateur race. They're both professional, but they can go ahead and bid up, because when they blend the prices, they'll be okay. So it takes two to change this price. One probably doesn't do it yet, but two, that'll start changing the price. It'll be fun. I think you're about to see the fun in Railtown. I don't know if it'll happen in July. Obviously, July is so near, but I don't know. I'm skeptical about August in terms of getting these, committees that have a big sheet of paper and colored markers, and they're getting a lot done. I don't even think they're going to be working, if you can call that work. I don't think they're going to be working in August. So I'm skeptical that there's going to be any breakthrough news in August. However, what Neil's picking up on doesn't require news. It just requires a firm. I can't give you a name. Let's say there's a I don't know, Edmonton AI Technologies Fund that was founded 2 years ago, and they've got commitments for, $75 million, and they're on to their third investment, and they have some cash. I don't even know if a fund like that exists, but that's all it takes. They've done their due diligence, just like you've done it, and they like what they see, and they know the metrics, and they know the AI for all strategy. They know Hive. They might have even heard of not so fat Chomsky. I say that in all good spirit. And they're buying. Let's see what Neil Gondek said again. Hi, everyone. On the CSC today, 33 cents, give or take. They have been relentless all day with nearly 150,000 across the tape so far. Something is definitely going on, which, in my humble opinion, is major accumulation by an entity or entities. I happen to like his read. Ricky Brogan, the main man from Tennessee. 105, Ricky Brogan added 1,505. That's a great price. I wish I had money, but I need to pay some bills. Total now, good total. 127, 247. Good job, Ricky B. Neil Gondek, congratulations to all who believe in Railtown while taking these shares at discounted level. This is nuts. I don't speak for Neil. I'd love to speak with him sometime, but I don't know how to. But I don't speak for Neil. But I want to emphasize to everyone out there that right now, and this is something that other guy that you can get advice to, I don't want to use his name, but his sidekick, Platinum Blonde, made fun of me for, and he joined in. And certainly they've been correct. I mean, if they are correct, for this last year that, there's been nothing doing. I attribute it to a blackout period. And clearly I must have misnamed it from a private equity or venture capital standpoint. We never called it that, but I guess from a lawyer standpoint, that makes sense. But it's the same thing. We knew when to keep our mouth shut, and we knew when we couldn't trade the stock in the open market. But anyway, I think the story's just gotten better and better. And the company just announced they're going commercial. But for whatever reason, I mean, I have a pretty good idea that one of the reasons is this kind of efficiency. I mean, this is efficiency. You know there's serious planning when there's big sheets of paper out and in-person good vibes. Where are the crayons? Have fun with your well-intentioned world domination. Great team, and looks like a very productive day. Well, anyway, this is what I think. We're waiting on, that could be a bottleneck, digital. It could be a bottleneck at attorneys, which I think you'd find a similar approach. Let's have a meeting and let's gather and let's circle back. And I gotta go. It's 5. I've got to pick up Timmy. Let's meet here tomorrow at 10:30. 10:30, okay. It's so great being part of a team. Ugh. It would drive me crazy. I would not last long. I'd say, give me a phone, give me something to do, and let me make some phone calls. But I think the story's gotten better and much better, much bigger. And the market's come to our product. Yet Railtown has still not really been able to give a full-fledged investor disclosure. And I think it's because we're waiting for some of these hardworking people to get what they're working on done. I mean, they're productive, so we're going to see the productivity soon. And once that happens, I think this buying in Railtown is going to drive the price up. But the point I want to make, I don't know if Neil's making this point. Number one, you're able to buy this stock so inexpensively. That's definitely a point Neil's making. But right now, you can buy it in size. I don't know. I would try it. I bet if someone went in right now and bought 3,000 at 24, I'd say it's 40%. You'll get your stock at 24 cents. But 60%, they'll give it to you at 0.23885. And so that means they're still giving stock that I really do not think exists. So the irony of it is not only can you buy the stock now in really inexpensively, you can buy a lot of it. But when it goes up, not only is your money not going to go very far, let's say you've got, I don't know, $2,400 to spend right now. I think that means you can buy 1,000 shares, right? 2 zeros. Yeah, $2,400. If you wait and it's $2.40, I think you can buy 100 shares. So oddly, as it goes up, with your money, you buy fewer shares. But let's say you've got $100,000. No, so let's say you've got $24,000 right now. I think that means you can buy 100,000 shares. I think you can get it because the computers are still offering it. Although I think we're at an inflection point. So if you had 24,000 today and you buy it at 24, yeah, you buy 100,000. But what if you wait and it goes to 240? I'm not sure 240 is going to be high enough to prove my point, but let's just stick with it. At 240, you've got 24 grand, which means you'll be able to buy 10,000 shares. But I'm not sure there'll be 10,000 shares available. I think the high frequency trading programs may pull away and that stock's not available. And I know Platinum Blonde might be a better source of information on this, but wait, if I sell, can I buy it back? Well, I warn you, if this stock goes to $24, and even if you had $2.5 million to spend to buy 100,000 shares at 24, you may not get it off. You might only be able to buy 1,000 shares there, 1,500 before it moves. So the weirdest thing going on in Railtown right now, and it has been for over a year, is you can establish large positions at inexpensive prices. And even if you were a fund later on with big bucks and you wanted to establish the positions you have already established, they may not find shares available. My opinion, those prime brokers and stock loan desks and market makers and high frequency trading machines may not make endless supplies of non-delivered, non-located, failure to deliver shares available to you or to the funds then. So the story may flip to not only higher prices, but fewer shares available to buy. It's completely flipped from what we've experienced for a year and a quarter or longer. Endless amount of stock available and ever lower prices. I think when the change comes, it could be complete. When I met my wife, this is Norm MacDonald. When I met my wife, you know, when I met her as a girlfriend, I thought I was complete. And then I married her, and now I'm finished. Neil Gondek, speaking of Canaccord, they took 30,000 today at 33.5. Morgan Stanley is on the bid as well. Yeah, something's happening. Canaccord might be working on behalf of their buddies, the shorts. But Morgan Stanley? I'm not so sure Morgan Stanley would be doing that. Justin. $2,400 is 10,000. What did I say? 2,400. Did I say 100? Divided by 0.24. Oh, I said 100,000. Sorry. I did it. Thank you for correcting me. I don't know how I ever passed a test. We weren't allowed to use calculators back then. But now I always have to use a calculator. And yes, I passed them quite well. But I was younger. We got 20 minutes to go. Nobody has a comment. Let me see if there's anything else I had to show you. I think Derek sent me something good. Tell me something good. Tell me that you love me. Tell me something good. Tell me that you need me. Who did that song? That was a good song. Tell me something good. All right, so Derek sent me something. It was interesting. And he said, did you notice? I blocked his name out because I'm not sure he would want, I didn't get permission to share it. But on the other hand, you probably know who he is. Did you see the most recent public talk that Jensen Huang gave? I did, actually. He highlighted the fact that AI factory infrastructure will require orchestration and governance layer. The products offered by Railtown AI Technologies directly align with and help solve the software orchestration and loop management problem described by NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang. Huang's core argument is AI value has shifted away from simple text fields towards managing automated, real-time loops of interacting autonomous agents, agentic AI. The transition from prompting to orchestration. The shift from ChatGPT to real work. This is exactly the layer of the 5-layer cake where Railtown AI has built its product line. It's also where Zaid Atufat Shamsi built the NVIDIA stack, and we believe, based on press release, that Railtown is in there. So then I think this is the answer he got when he asked how Railtown AI solves Huang's orchestration challenge. Railtown AI operates as an AI developer tool and a agentic orchestration company. Its suite provides solutions for the exact operational challenges Huang highlighted. Check. Managing the depth of prompting. In other words, we're moving to agent frameworks. Huang stated that the future job is writing and handling automated loops rather than prompts. That's Railtown AI. And then check Agentic Development Kit, ADK. Railtown's Railtracks is built explicitly to construct, orchestrate, and deploy autonomous AI agents at real-world scale. It provides a multi-agent system allowing developers to build a hierarchy of niche agents capable of complex coordination. The exact definition of Wong's agent loops. Check. Real-time routing and infrastructure friction. To handle Wong's concern about complex routing between LLMs and APIs, Railtown's tools include a no friction tooling infrastructure. You can plug this in to what you have. It's agnostic. It can read 33 languages, and anything you throw at it, it truly is agnostic. It's preset for the MCP. It's a plugin. Pull it out of the box, unwrap it, and plug it in, and it works. This enables simplified dynamic interaction between models and tools, preventing the disconnection of components that Wong warned about. Check. Observability in the AI factory. That's Conductor. Moving data center workloads to agentic loops introduces massive complexity. Where software bugs crash entire real-time flows. Conductor, Roadhouse. And then check. Railtown's Conductor platform acts as an AI application and agent observability tool. It tracks real-time execution, monitors deployments, and analyzes root causes of failures in both human code and autonomous machine behavior. This acts as the monitoring and governance tier NVIDIA demands in its enterprise blueprints. Check. Sovereign infrastructure integration. Wong heavily emphasizes data center architecture. Railtown AI built its ecosystem to run on local, when you're, or custom enterprise infrastructure. So I read local as if you're doing it vertically, custom infrastructure as if the data center. And it specifically collaborated with TELUS Sovereign AI Factory to run its agentic tools on secure sovereign data center compute. While NVIDIA builds the hardware and foundational platforms to execute these models, Railtown AI provides the developer-level orchestration layer that makes building, chaining, and debugging those applications possible with their suite of products. And then Derek ends with the encouragement. It's just a matter of time. If not, it's not if the rails will fly, it's when. Hold strong. And this goes back to what Tommy Lee was saying about Warren Buffett's partner, Munger. The hard part is waiting. Waiting is the hardest part. But we got it. But thank you, Justin, for correcting my arithmetic. All right, we've got 12 minutes, and I'm going to quit at 4 o'clock because I've got an appointment. But I'm going to quickly point out to each of yous, again, that I am asking, not because I like it, but if anybody feels conciliatory, buy Railtown. You know, I'll deal with what comes, but it is urgent to keep this going, and it's significant. And if it falls apart, I'm not sure I'm going to be there. You know, I'm not. I don't want to be over dramatic. And of course, there's other people will pick up the pieces, and the stock will take care of itself. But anyway, I just am asking for help. Railtown right now, of course, I guess they listen. It's down. It's down 0.002 on 2,000 shares. So about $500 has the whole Railtown complex priced at 0.235. $500. Unbelievable. It's a joke. So the bid now is 23.3, 2,856. The offer is still 24 cents for 13,000. So they want you to think there's more stock available there for sale. I'd take them up on it. I'd go in and I'd buy 13,000 at 24. What it'll mean? They'll give it to you probably at 23.6. But if you go in at the ask, they owe it to you, either at 24 or at a lower price, but they have to give it to you. Unless someone's ahead of you, but I don't think anyone is. If you go in the middle, they don't have to execute. This is also my Zell. All right, so Finger's actually showing half a penny. It's up 0.0058 at 27.07. GDC's up 12 cents at 182. Nixie is down 12.85 at 71.9. And and then Railtown I gave you. I'm gonna put a different. I don't want to quote Cosmo anymore. Let's see. Next trip is up 3 cents at 178. So Railtown, let's go back to that with 9 minutes to go. 75,950 shares. The last trade is 150 shares at 23.62. 150 shares at 23.62. So the bid is 23.31. The ask is 24. 2,500 by 13,000. And, you know, I don't see all that volume on my service, 75,950, but it's probably there. I don't know, somewhere. I think Railtown's trading very nicely. It's not doing all that barcoding anymore. So $23.31 by $23.99. $23.31 by $23.99. What else can I say? Railtown, RLAIF, is bidding 0.2331 for 2,500 shares. It's asking 0.2399 for 18,500. And the volume is 75,950 shares. With the last trade, 150 shares at 23.62. And we'll be here to see what happens. I was there when it happened. So I guess I ought to know. I was there when it happened. McConnell releases new proof of life photo. Well, Trump seems to be going out giving, talks again. That could help the midterms. He's a hardworking guy. U.S. pauses Iran strikes as negotiations resume. But Trump says he's ready to, quote, go back to very strong military action. Talks will proceed, quote, fast or not at all. Five minutes to go. I was there when it happened, so I guess I ought to know. They fired, no, she resigned. The CEO of Cracker Barrel. She was probably pushed out. All right, we got 3 minutes to go. Let's go back and see what's happening with Railtown. Last trade, 23.62. Same trade, same bat channel, same bat man. The bid is 2,500 for 23.31. The ask now is 32,000. That's a spoof. At 23.99. If I had the money, I'd go put in to buy all 32,000 shares of that. But I don't have the money. What'll happen at some point, an institution will come in or a big buyer will come in and they'll buy the whole thing and they'll become the bid. They'll go in and try to buy 100,000 shares at 32 and boom. At 23. I'm talking too much. All right, it's 33.58 and 2 minutes to go. 23.31, 2,500 shares. The ask is $23.99, 2,500 by 32,000. There ain't no 32,000 for sale. They just want you to, and I don't know why it's allowed. It's illegal to spoof, but no one cares. So Railtown's in the red. We got 1 minute to go. Will somebody come and buy and put it in the green? Or will it close the day in the red? We're about to find out. I'm going to say my good nights because I've got to be somewhere and I've got to get ready. So unless there's something to talk about, I thank everyone for being here. I'm sorry it's so thin on information, but that's just where we are. I think it's amazing. Anybody that listens and joins all of us and owns Railtown. I think Total Metals is a great opportunity. I think it's been held up by the fires, but the gold's still there. All right, it's 4 o'clock. The stock closes at 23.62. The bid is 23.01. The ask is 25.24. Now the bid is 23 and the ask is 27.37. Let's just see if what happened on the Canadian exchange, which is delayed, but let's just see. Closed. I don't think this shows the closing price because I think it is delayed. But the last price I see on the Canadian is 34 cents. And so it's up. The volume is 156,778. The same broker, Latimer. The buyer was National Bank Financial, the seller TD Securities, and there's no news. So with that, I wish everybody well. Continue to pray for peace. If you think about it, it's important to all of us. It's important to your children. And we'll see you tomorrow. And hopefully I won't talk about the war. Whatever you do, don't mention the war. Peace.